Friends, just like bricks builds an house, cells builds an organism. Many cells combine together to form a tissue. Tissue combines together to form an organ. Various organs combine together to form an organ system, and various organ system combines together to form an individual or an organism. And maybe that is why the cell is known as the basic unit of life. Hello aspirants, my name is Sonar and today we are going to discuss about cell. That is the basic unit of life. So friends, without any further delay, we are going to discuss what is a cell. So friends, cell is the basic unit of life which larger structures of which gives rise to tissues and later on they combine to form organs and organ system. Now, cells are classified, organisms are classified into two categories, okay, unicellular organisms or and multicellular organisms. Now, when an organism is made only of one cell, they are known as unicellular organisms, whereas organisms made up of multiple cells are known as multicellular organisms. Humans are made from estimated 50 trillion cells. So friends, there was a cell theory given by Sladen and Chevan, and this is very important as far as your examination is concerned. Now what this cell theory tells us is that all living things are made of cells. All living things made of cells. Cells are the basic unit of life and function. Cells are the basic unit of life and function in all living things. And all cells are produced from pre-existing cells, which means whenever there is any new cell formed, it is forming from the pre-existing cell, which means cell cannot be formed by its own, which means it is formed from a pre-existing cell. So this was the famous cell theory given by Sladen and Schwann. So guys, moving towards the next slide, we have various types of cells. There are two types of cells. One is prokaryotic and the other one is eukaryotic. Now guys, I'm going to give a holistic idea about the difference between both of the cells, that is the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic cells. So friends, prokaryotic cells are the primitive type of cells. Prokaryotic cells are the primitive type of cells, whereas eukaryotic cells are the advanced type of cells. Most of the prokaryotics are unicellular, which means these are made prokaryotic organisms are unicellular, whereas most of the eukaryotes are multicellular. The nucleus is poorly defined, which means the nucleus, the very central part of a cell is known as nucleus. We are going to discuss about that. It is very poorly defined, very poorly formed in case of the prokaryotes, whereas in eukaryotes the nucleus is well defined and surrounded by a nuclear membrane, that is a jelly-like substance that surrounds the nucleus. Now friends, cell organelles such as plastids, mitochondria, Golgi bodies, etc. are absent. What are cell organelles? Cell have various organs basically. These are known as organelles that are carrying out different functions. So most of the cell organelles are absent in case of prokaryotic, whereas in eukaryotic they are present. Now example, bacteria, blue-green algae, etc. These are examples of prokaryotes, whereas all the higher animals such as plants, fungi, algae, etc. these are example of eukaryotes. Now friends, there is a fine difference between the plant cell as well as the animal cell. Okay, so what is this difference friends? The plant cell is characterized by a presence of certain cell organelles that are not found in animals. Now what are these? Since plants can produce their own food, so by the process of photosynthesis, and to conduct this process, it has certain special cell organelles known as chloroplast. Okay, now this chloroplast helps in the production of food by a process known as photosynthesis. There is one more cell organelle that is present in the plant that is absent in the animal is that cell wall. Cell wall is present in the plant which is absent in the animals. Now guys, we are going to discuss about the various cell organelles or the various organs of the cell. These are known as cell organelles. Now first we are going to discuss about the cell membrane. It is present both in animals and plants, and it is also known as plasma membrane, and it is selectively permeable. How selectively permeable, guys? Because it allows passage from both the side in and out, okay, of certain materials, and it also stops certain materials entering the cell body. So this is basically the function of the cell membrane. It acts as a selective barrier that separates the cell's internal environment from surrounding, and it has a fundamental role to control the movement of substances such as nutrients, gases and waste products. So see guys, this is the diagram, okay, and it is made up of phospholipids, that is phosphorus and lipids in a bilayer arrangement. Now we are moving towards our next slides, that is cell wall. As I told you earlier guys, that cell wall is not present in animal cells, but it is present in bacteria, fungi as well as in plant. In plants, this cell wall is made up of cellulose. It is made up of cellulose. It is made up of cellulose. In bacteria, it is made up of peptidoglycan, whereas in fungi, it is made up of chitin. So this cell wall was discovered by Robert Hooke in the year 1665. It provides shape to the cell, protects from mechanical damage and infection. So it is not present in animal cell. Moving towards the next slide, friends, we have cell nucleus, also known as the control center or the brain of the cell. It was discovered by Robert Brown in the year 1831, and it is centrally located in most of the eukaryotic, that means the advanced cells. It is also known as brain of the cell, and key components includes DNA, chromosomes, nucleolus, etc. This contains the genetic information of an organism. This contains the genetic information and allows passage of genetic information from one generation to the next generation. Moving towards the next slide, friends, we have DNA, that is the carrier of the genetic information. This DNA is present inside the nucleus. Okay, so guys, what is the full form of DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay, deoxyribonucleic acid, and this was discovered by Frederick Meischer. Frederick Meischer in the late 19th century. Functions, stores and transmits genetic instruction essential for the development and functioning of the reproduction of all living organisms. Now friends, DNA is made up of two polynucleotide chains twisted around each other. Now one polynucleotide chain is made up of three components. What are those? Nitrogen bases. These are nitrogen bases: cytosine, guanine, adenine, uracil, thiamine, etc. These are nitrogen bases. Phosphate group and pentose sugar. Whenever they combine together, they form nucleotide, and n numbers of nucleotide are combined together to form one chain of nucleotide, polynucleotide. And whenever two polynucleotide are attached to one another via, this is known as hydrogen bonding between the nitrogen bases, this form DNA, that is the deoxyribonucleic acid. When there is two chain of polynucleotide twisted around each other, this is known as DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. But when there is one chain, this is known as ribonucleic acid. Okay, so this is the difference between DNA and RNA. So guys, chromosome contains the genetic information carrier. It is the genetic information carrier composition structured from DNA and proteins. and proteins are compiled within the chromosome. So if we want to extract the DNA, it is found within the chromosome itself. Okay, so it plays various important role during the cell division. So the basic function is to carry and organize the genetic information that determines the organism's traits, that is the characteristics and biological functions. Moving towards the next slide, friends, we have nucleolus. It is known as the ribosome factory of the cell. Ribosome factory of the cell. Now, what is nucleolus? This is the very center of the nucleus is known as nucleolus. The very center of the nucleus is called known as nucleolus, and the other parts are known as nucleoplasm. Nucleoplasm, and it occupies about 25% of the nucleus volume. Structure lacks chromosomes, but it's rich in RNA and proteins and responsible for producing and assembling the subunits of ribosomes. Ribosomes are found within this particular organ known as nucleolus. That is the you can consider it as the center of the nucleus. So guys, moving towards the next slide, as we have discussed that ribosomes are found within nucleolus, this ribosomes in turn helps in the production of the protein. That is why they are known as protein factories of the cell. This was discovered by George E. Palade in the year 1955, and it is the smallest cell organelle. Smallest cell organelle. So guys, what is the function of the ribosome is to assemble various amino acids and form proteins, as amino acids are the building blocks of the proteins. Moving towards the next slide, friends, we have endoplasmic reticulum. This is known as the cell's transport system, discovered by Keith R. Potter. This was discovered by Keith R. Potter, Albert Claude, and Ernest F. Fulham in the year 1969. You can look in the diagram, guys. It has a structure like this. Okay. So what is the flattened tubes are present? Okay, flattened tube-like structure is present and function involved in the transport and synthesis of proteins, lipids, glycogens, and steroids. Example: cholesterol, progesterone, testosterone, etc. These are known as steroids. So this is the function of the endoplasmic reticulum, the cells, also known as cells transport system. Now, endoplasmic reticulum is of two types. Based on the presence or absence of the ribosomes. Now, when ribosomes are attached on the surface of the endoplasmic reticulum, it is known as rough endoplasmic reticulum. But when there is absence of this ribosome, this is known as smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Now we are moving towards our next organelle. It is known as Golgi body, and it was discovered by Camillo Golgi in the year 1898, and by his name this organelle was given name as Golgi apparatus. Connected with endoplasmic reticulum, guys, this is connected with endoplasmic reticulum and is referred as the manufacturing and shipping center of the cell, also known as post office of the cell. Whatever is formed through the endoplasmic reticulum, they help in the transport of those substances such as hormones. Okay, so this is known as the post office of the cell. Now, lysosomes. This is very important organelle, also known as suicidal bag of the cell. Suicidal bag of the cell. Now, what is the function? Helps in cellular digestion. Whenever there is any foreign particle, it tends to digest that foreign particle, and in that process, this cell organelle also digests itself or dies. That is why it is known as suicidal bag, discovered by Christian René de Duve in the year 1950, contains 50 types of hydrolytic enzymes, and this hydrolytic enzymes kills the foreign particles. Mitochondria, one of the most important organs, also known as powerhouse of the cell, discovered by Albert von Kolliker. Albert von Kolliker, known as the powerhouse of the cell, and it is one of those organs that are double membranous, and it contains its own DNA, RNA, and ribosome, and that is why it is known as semi-autonomous and site of aerobic respiration. Respiration that takes place in presence of oxygen, it is known as aerobic respiration, and ultimately this organ gives us the energy currency, that is the ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Moving towards the next slide, friends, we have centrosome. Centrosome, discovered by Edward van Beneden in the year 1833. Microtubules of the cells are located, contains two cylindrical structure called centrioles and regulates cell division cycle. This is the one of the functions of the, or the only function of the centrosome, that is to regulate the cell division. Vacuoles are present vacuoles are present both in plants and animal cells, but in animal cell it is small, whereas in plant cell it is bigger. Now there is some difference in this plant cell and animal cell vacuole. You see, in animal C several small vacuoles are there, but in plant cell one large vacuole will be there. Okay, used for food storage in case of animals, but used for storage of water and push against the cell wall. That gives the rigidity of the cell and keeps the plant rigid, whereas can contain nutrients, water, or waste also. Sometimes animal cells vacuoles contains waste also. Discovered by Anton van Leeuwenhoek in 1676, can occupy 90% of the plant cell space. So plastids, it is exclusively present in the plant, okay, and plastids can be classified into two categories: those having color, chromoplast and leucoplast. Now under chromoplast we have chloroplast, under leucoplast we have amyloplast, that is having starch, that is amylase, elaioplast, that is having oil, and proteinoplast, that is having protein. Now what is the function of the plastids? It is helping in the photosynthetic process. It is double membranous and containing DNA, present in plant cell, discovered by Ernst Haeckel. So friends, this was all from my side for the day. If you want to learn more topics in a simple and holistic manner, stay connected with Edufy. Thank you.